hindsight is a word we've used. We've all got to be careful to look at the world as it was before 9/11. Ambassador Black, using hindsight now, if we were able to recognize the kind of tragedy that was going to happen, what would you have done differently? What did we do wrong?
Well, I tell you, I would start from the standpoint that when I started this job in 1999, I thought there was a good chance I was going to be sitting right here in front of you. And I was mentally prepared for it all along. The enemy we're up against is one that I've been operating against since the early 90s. I know these guys. I know what they want to do. I know how dedicated they are. And they were coming at us hard. And, you know, we did all that we could at our level to engage these guys, to try and produce the kinds of intelligence, to kind of produce the kinds of leads. And the men and women that did this, Governor, that served this country in war, out front, did a fantastic job. You know, so on the one side you have catastrophic failure, more than 3,000 people dead. No one's more bothered by this than us. But we engage these targets. You'll never hear from us, oh, you know, we didn't get it. Oh, we got it all right. We knew what we were up against. We gave it all we had. The big bottom line here, you know, people come up with these grand ideas for improvement, you know, big computers or, you know, whatever. The bottom line here, I got to tell you, and I'll take part of the blame on this. I kind of failed my people despite doing everything I could. We didn't have enough people to do the job, and we didn't have enough money by magnitudes. I mean, I could give you comparisons you wouldn't believe. We used to talk about it in the Counterterrorism Center. You know, this goes in the 90s. I mean, this has been so hardwired. You know, by the time we get up in the recent past, I mean, this train is on this track and this is where it's going. Hell, I don't even know if we ever could have got it off without some kind of catastrophe. I will tell you, you know, going back to the 90s, doing the terrorist target, the only way we ever got more money, essentially, was we would spend ahead of the curve and run out. Now, people talk about the Millennium Threat. I can remember we were spending money on the Millennium Threat. Went to the director and said, Mr. Tennant, you know, we're spending money here. We're not going to make it to the end of the fiscal year. We're going to be 3 months short. We're going to have to stop and, you know, we won't be able to operate. He said, well, he sighed and he said, well, you know, do what's right for the country, blow it out. So we did. So we spent, you know, after the Millennium Threat was over, we spent our time trying to get the money to make up for that which we spent. Or, and I'm just not going to go into the exact kind of language I use, which is very graphic, but unfortunately, when Americans get killed, it would translate into additional resources. It's a constant track. Either you run out or people die, and when people die, you get more money. And, you know, it would have been better if we as a country had made the commitment to provide our counter-terrorist warriors the resources and the numbers so they could do the best job they could. But what I want to leave you with, I mean, that's all I want to leave you with. The people that did this are heroes. And we didn't give them what they needed to fight and win. It's that simple. Thank you.
Because intelligence budgets were shrinking while counterterrorism resources were steadily growing, senior policy and intelligence officials were reluctant to make the additional cuts in other programs that would have been necessary to augment counterterrorism programs further. This would have jeopardized their ability to satisfy other collection priorities within the intelligence community. As Director of Central Intelligence George Tenet testified before the Joint Inquiry, quote, as I declared war against al-Qaeda in 1998, in the aftermath of the East Africa Embassy bombings, we were in our 5th year of round-the-clock support to Operation Southern Watch in Iraq. Just 3 months earlier, we were embroiled in answering questions on the India and Pakistan nuclear tests and trying to determine how we could surge more people to understanding and countering weapons of mass destruction proliferation. In early 1999, we surged more than 800 analysts and redirected collection access from across the intelligence community to support the NATO bombing campaign against the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, end quote. Similarly, NSA Director Michael Hayden testified that his energy was focused heavily on a range of regional and global issues. An FBI budget official told the Joint Inquiry that counterterrorism was not a priority for Attorney General John Ashcroft before September 11, 2001, that the FBI faced pressure to make cuts in counterterrorism to satisfy the Attorney General's other priorities. The CIA's Associate Deputy Director for Operations, or the DDO, recalled some attempt to protect counterterrorism in response to the DCI's declaration of war. However, this did not lead to any change in training or dramatic increase in the size of the CIA's Middle East stations, or significantly greater numbers of personnel assigned to Counterterrorism Center. The particular problem was that counterterrorism was a worldwide target, and the DO was closing stations in less strategic areas, even though Al Qaeda was active there. This hindered acquisition of information on terrorism in these areas. In interviews, CIA officials explained that they were reluctant to cut entire areas of collection, particularly in the field, because senior U.S. government policymakers have many requirements for intelligence across a wide variety of issue areas. By the late 1990s, intelligence community coverage of many issues were exceptionally slim, and staffing was skeletal. The CIA's DO cut by almost 1/3 the number of personnel deployed overseas, according to the DDO. The associate DDO for resources noted that the DO often was not able to meet its collection goals, in part because of an increased focus on counterterrorism, which meant that other issues received less attention. At best, the DO could sustain what it had, but could not invest in the future. Communications and training suffered tremendously. The intelligence community was unable to reduce requests for collection on other priorities, as NSA Director Michael Hayden testified. Our efforts in 2000 to churn money internally were not accepted by the community. Its reliance on signals intelligence had made it reluctant to give it up. The former Center of Counterterrorism, Kofor Black, noted that shifting resources was difficult because the policy community had other demands for intelligence. He stated in an interview that we could see it coming in Afghanistan, but, for example, couldn't get more agency slots within the theater. In an interview, the CIA official responsible for the Near East noted that even after September 11th, no major issues were deleted, despite the imperatives of the war on terrorism. As a result, intelligence community officials contend that they had too many priorities for the resource levels that were available. The NSA director testified that given all the other intelligence priorities, it would have been difficult at time within the intelligence community or the Department of Defense to accept the kind of resource decisions that would have been necessary to make our effort against the target more robust.